Hey, Flimsy Lunch Tray here, back with our traditional Saturday video series, being our upgrade and commander build video series. And today we're going to be looking at the Tier 8 tech tree British destroyer HMS Lightning. So in yesterday's video, which I'll have in the link in the description, you got to see the Lightning in action. I talked a little bit about certain ship characteristics, and just noted how there's some similarities, but also there's a few differences between her and HMS Cossack, which is a British premium destroyer. So first off, we're going to talk about what type of destroyer the Lightning is, and I actually am going to briefly talk about how the Lightning gets a little bit different as you go up the line, from Jervis to Lightning, but then also look briefly the difference between the Cossack and the Lightning too, because I kind of mentioned that in yesterday's video, so I'll briefly try to go over that and not spend too much time there, because the main point you guys are here is to see recommendations and advice on the modules, the upgrades, and the commander build. So what type of destroyer we're talking about? Well, those of you who've been around long enough, there's three types of destroyers in the game. You have gunboat destroyers, you have torpedo destroyers, which Lightning has 2 racks, and then you have hybrid destroyers. And hybrid destroyers are essentially a mix of the two, being both kind of torpedo and also gun oriented. Lightning is a hybrid destroyer. I would say she kind of fairly somewhat lies in the center, but at the same time I would say she would lean more towards a gun hybrid destroyer than I would say a torpedo destroyer. And that's purely the reason I kind of give that as the range on these torpedoes is only 8 kilometers. So it means you're still having to kind of get up close and personal, and that it means you often will be using your guns more in those interactions. So we're gonna back out here, and then we're going to look briefly at the Lightning in comparison to, let's go off with the Jervis first, right? There's a difference I noticed in going from the Jervis to playing the Lightning. Maybe you guys will think this is odd how I caught this, or just like, oh, that makes sense. But if we go to the Jervis, this is the Tier 7 British destroyer. Note the guns. Okay, so she's got the same gun setup. She's got 2 on the bow, 1 on the stern. But look at the distance between these turrets, right? It's pretty close. And Cossack is actually the same. It looked pretty much the same guns, right? It's tight and close. But when we go to the Lightning, look how far spaced the guns are in the turrets. Now, I'm assuming this just has to do with the type of artillery. Let's see, we have main battery 120 millimeter, 50 QF Mark 11. What's on the Jervis? Yeah, 45 to, let's see, it's 50 caliber. Yeah, so there's the difference there. But you'll notice the reason why I bring this up is when you're firing your guns, you're going to feel like your shells aren't tight. Sorry. Because of these guns being placed farther apart, when you're firing at targets, you're going to kind of notice that the 2 shells, when they fire, they don't just seem close together. They kind of seem spread out. And that is just, it feels different to me. And I noticed that the first battle I played. So just kind of keep that in mind. I mean, when you go from the Jervis to the Lightning, you get better torpedoes, you get better AA. Of course, you get more survivability, more health. And so Lightning feels right at home to me. But she plays similar to Jervis, but she's just a tier up, and as traditional should be and is better than Jervis. When we look at the Cossack, I talked about, or I said there's 2 main differences between the Cossack and the Lightning. There's more, I would say 3. The ships play really similarly. They have roughly the same reload time. No, not quite. Lightning's got a little bit faster reload time. You have the Cossack has 4 guns. The Lightning has 3 guns. The Cossack has 1 torpedo tube. The Lightning has 1 torpedo tube, or 2 torpedo tubes. The Cossack has pretty terrible AA defense. The Lightning has a better AA defense. So kind of where they trade off here, you get these 4 turrets with right now we have a 5-second reload. On the Lightning, when you look at the guns, artillery, right now we're rocking a 4.5-second reload with 1 less turret. And then we jump back to the Cossack, you have 1 torpedo tube, shoots 4, but they go 10 kilometers. And let's see the time, 66 seconds. On the Lightning, you have 2 torpedo tubes that go 8 kilometers at 61 knots. What was it, 62? Yeah. And the reload time is 96 seconds. Okay, so there's kind of some trade-offs here when you're comparing the two. And then the Cossack has a 2.5 kilometer AA defense. The Lightning has a 5.2 kilometer AA defense and much more powerful in terms of continuous damage and damage by shell explosions. We look at Cossack, 47 compared to 120, and we don't even see the damage by shell explosions. So if you're kind of wondering what the difference is between those two, it's really that. I was also curious about the maneuverability. So 3-second rudder shift time on the Lightning, 590. Okay, so the Cossack has a slightly better rudder shift time, but the turning circle radius is a little bit longer. And it has actually, I think, when I was comparing it to kind of some key buildings in the background, because of this extra gun turret, and it has a little bit longer superstructure, it's got 2 smokestacks, the Cossack is actually a little bit longer than the Lightning. So I'm assuming that's why you have a slightly difference in the turning circle radius. Their concealment's basically the same, 5.5, and then the Cossack is also 5.5. Okay, enough about the differences there. Let's go on and cracking about modules. So the Lightning has 2 modules. She has, her first one is a hull upgrade, hull B. This will give you more hit points and more AA mounts. Yeah, so you get 4 more AA mounts. Your health goes up from 2,900, giving you 18,700. But I think that's also pairing it with Survivability Expert. Yes, it is, because we have that on right now. So if I had that off, Survivability Expert off my commander, you would notice it'd be a little bit different. So it means you're going to be able to stick in the battle a little bit longer, because it's kind of interesting. I don't know what the torpedo difference is. I was trying to figure that out, and I think they just do maybe a slightly bit more damage now. I can't say for certain. So torpedoes, what you get is what you get. The guns you get to upgrade, basically it's the main battery firing range. You go from 11.1 to 12.2 kilometer main battery firing range, and you have that nice 36 knots. On your propulsion, you don't get the engine boost like, say, American destroyers or other destroyers in the game. So that means a Georgia can't outrun you, and if with their engine boost and 0 speed flag, and take you out if you get too close to one. So keep that in mind. Or other French battleships likely as well. Moving on swiftly. Upgrades. For the first slot, I recommend taking the main armaments modification 1. What it does is it reduces the risk of your main battery and your torpedo tubes from becoming incapacitated by negative 20%. Your main battery and torpedo tube survivability go up plus 50%. And your main battery repair time and torpedo tube repair time, if those armaments should be incapacitated, will repair quicker. You don't need auxiliary armaments, you don't have a secondary battery, and your AA is kind of it's nothing to write home about, because even with it being 5.2 kilometers, and realistically the planes are going to be under 5 kilometers before your AA defense start firing. Magazine modification 1, risk of your ship's magazine detonating. You don't need this. What this does is it reduces your ship's magazine chance of detonating by negative 70%. And as I always highlight to you guys, you can just simply take the combat signal, Juliet Charlie. You can see I only have 16 of them. That's because I always use them in ranked, brawl, clan battles, random battles. You don't really need to use it in co-op. I mean, you can detonate in co-op, but don't take this, but this completely eliminates the risk of your ship's magazine detonating, so why not use a module or upgrade for something better like the main armaments modification 1. Second slot, you have I would say two main options. The first, if you don't have the coal, you should go for the engine room protection. So what this does is it reduces the risk of your engine and your steering gears from becoming incapacitated by -20%. And then the engine repair time and steering gear repair time, if those should be knocked out, will repair essentially quicker. What I want to eventually get for the Lightning, this is my first choice, is the Hydroacoustic Search Modification 1. So this increases the action time of the Hydroacoustic Search and short-range Hydroacoustic Search consumables. So you have the short-range Hydroacoustic Search on the Lightning. What this does is it extends by plus 20% of the action time of the consumable. So right now our action time of consumable is 180 seconds. So that means 3 minutes of Hydroacoustic Search. So if we times that by, or do the math here, 0.2, that's 36 seconds. So 180 plus 36 means you get 216 seconds for the action time of your Hydroacoustic Search, which is really great because this works more as like a short-range defense, picking up torpedoes for friendlies, and because the action time is over 3 minutes with this upgrade alone, and we can make it even longer lasting with the commander skills, it's really great. You purchase this in the armory, so Wargaming kind of added where you can just click on here and take you directly into the armory, and you can buy it for 17,000 coal. Now, coupons, I always wait for coupons to come online. You get this upgrades resources 2 days. And so when this comes online, I'll get 25% off, meaning I think it's like 12,500 coal for this. And I always recommend buying these with the coupon because coal is a pretty valuable resource and you get to buy a lot of cool things. So now, yeah, we got that covered. For the third slot, I would recommend the Aiming Systems Modification 1. Increases the firing accuracy of the main battery and the second battery, which you don't have. Accelerates the traverse speed of torpedo tubes and extends the firing range of the secondary battery. So the maximum dispersion of your main battery shells, this is the main reason why I recommend taking this, is your dispersion of your main battery shells is tighter. It's -7%, which means you're having a tighter groups with your main battery when you're firing on enemy targets. So that means, when you get into those destroyer knife fights, you're much more likely to boost in your chance there of landing the shells. So I definitely recommend taking this. And then also your torpedo tube traverse speed is plus 20%. Something that the Lightning does better than the Cossack because the Lightning has 2 sets of 4 torpedo tubes. When you get 8 torpedo tubes, means that you can yellow enemy cruisers, battleships, and know that with 8 torpedoes, you're going to be able to put them in the ground for the most part. I mean, I'm not sure about a Kremlin for say. I'd have to look at those there. But the Cossack only has 4 torpedoes, so it means you can't necessarily do those YOLO runs. But your torpedoes reload faster than the Lightning. Something else I wanted to mention there. Again, you don't really need to take anything that's going to boost your AA. I would say, in my opinion, of the Lightning, you already have a decent main battery traverse. It's 180-degree turn time of 9 seconds. You also have torpedo tubes modification, so your torpedoes are going to go even faster. So instead of the 61 knots, they're going to go plus 5%, and maybe like 63, 64 knots, something like that. And the risk of your torpedo tubes from getting incapacitated is reduced. So if you wanted to go for more a torpedo build on the Lightning, you could, and you would want to take this then over this. I just play around the guns more, traditionally on hybrid destroyers, and for me, that's where I want to invest my money at. For the fourth slot, you have 2 options. This is more for cruisers, battleships. I mean, your damage control party comes off cooldown relatively decent, 40 seconds, and action time of 5 seconds. But you really want to take the steering gears modification 1 because it's that maneuverability, 3 seconds. That is really great in terms of how it works really well for the British destroyers. You're being really maneuverable. You don't get the propulsion modification for the British destroyers just because they kind of have that built in sort of already. They take off pretty fast already. So the steering gears, it helps you be more agile, maybe dodge some torpedoes, so on and so forth. So definitely want to invest your credits into the steering gears modification 1. For the 5th slot, I would recommend taking the concealment system modification 1. I have everything on the Lightning right now. I have concealment expert already on my commander. We have a camouflage already on its, I think I unlocked this through a campaign collection, collection, or maybe it was a campaign. So our concealment max is 5.5 by sea, 2.5 by air. You have your assured detectability range, and then 2.5 after firing your guns in smoke. So what's nice about this is that your hydroacoustic range can pick up ships up to 3 kilometers away. So let's say you are in a smoke and there's an enemy destroyer approaching you. It means you have a few seconds that you're going to be able to shoot them without them knowing quite where you are. Alternatively, you can approach an enemy destroyer in a smoke screen, and you're going to be able to pick them up and stay within that 3 kilometer, 2.5 kilometer window, and shoot them, and they won't be able to detect you. So that's just really nice. So kind of keep that in mind between the concealment with the smoke firing penalty and your hydroacoustic search. Consumable wise, we've talked about these both already, but you also get the short burst smoke generator. So I already have superintendent. Without superintendent, you'd have 6 and smoke screens, and then 3 hydroacoustic searches. So you had the typical British destroyer, the short burst smoke generator, which basically means is that the action time of the consumable is like 10 seconds compared to like something like, I think the Benson at tier 8 American destroyer is like 31 seconds or something like that. And the smoke screen dispersion time for the Lightning is 40 seconds. So basically your action time of consumable is less, your smoke screen dispersion time is less, but the reload time into your next smoke screen is much shorter at 70 seconds, where like the American destroyers, you're rating like I think over roughly 2 minutes or a little bit more. So that means you can continuously pick your engagements and know that if you need to go dark again, you can do so pretty quickly. So that's one of the traits I really like about the British destroyers, but also their fire chance they have on their shells. So right now we're rocking 9%, and that's without taking any combat signals. I think if we take 2 combat signals, that's going to bump up to 10%. Yeah, 10%. So it's quite nice when you take the Victor Lima combat signal and the India X-ray combat signal. All right, moving on swiftly. Let's talk about the commander. So as you can see, I have Bad Cap as my commander for my British destroyers. I think I've had him on since before the Jervis, on like the Icarus, I think, and up. So we have him at a level 15. He's about to run over to level 16. Need 9,000 more elite XP, and maybe I'll get that next battle or two. So with the 15-point build, you can see what I've already invested in. For the Lightning, you definitely want your 10-point bread and butter build, I call it, meaning you want preventive maintenance, which reduces the risk of the main turrets, torpedo tubes, steering gears, and engine from becoming incapacitated by negative 30%. That's really good. For the second row, your 2nd point skill, so this is a 3-point commander, you want Last Stand. So if your engine or your steering gears becomes incapacitated, your ship remains partially able to sustain speed and maneuverability. This is really important as a destroyer, and you really want to take Last Stand. Then for a 6-point commander, you want Survivability Expert, defense skill. What this does is it increases the health pool for each ship tier, so plus 350. So that boost the survivability further up, meaning we get to our 18,700 all said and done. So really good. And then you want Concealment Expert. The ship's detectability range is reduced by negative 10%, which gets us down to that really nice 5.5 kilometer detectability range by sea. Now, I will show you the build I am planning to take. And then there's a second build option I'll highlight. And then there's a third build option I'll highlight as well. That one has a you can mix and match a bit more in that one, I would say. So these will be the three builds I'll highlight, and the first one is what I would recommend most, but the second one, or the third one, actually kind of is a mix there. It's also possible to take that one as well, and I'll explain my reasoning there, and then we'll go over why I don't take some of the other commander skills. Like, I sometimes forget giving you guys the reasoning of why I don't take certain skills. So as you can see, with a 15-point commander, because this is a 3-point skill after getting a 10-point, so a 13-point commander, I have elected to take Superintendent because I want to use I want more smoke and I want plenty of hydro. When you take Superintendent, as I was mentioning previously, it gives you additional smoke screen, it gives you additional short burst or short hydroacoustic search. I was playing a battle last night. Our team was in a really good lead, and then as traditional Warships, our team started kind of throwing. There's only like 3 of us alive at the end of the battle, and there was like there's a carrier, 2 battleships, Hindenburg, I think, something like that. And even though I was top tier as well, tier 8, tier 6 matchmaking. And I actually used all 7 of my smoke screens. Can you believe that? I went through all of them because there was an enemy carrier, and also the battleships were pushing, or one of them. Well, 2 were at first, and then 1 was pushing me. So I'd kind of give some distance, smoke up, fire, and then keeping in mind my concealment range. And then I would exit the smoke, making sure he wouldn't be able to detect me. And throwing a lot of torpedoes his way. There was some really good the last few enemy team members were really good players. But we won. But I went through all 7 of my smoke screens. So I don't always do that, but these are the type of situations that I really enjoy having that additional smoke screen. Not to mention, if you're still dealing with destroyers at the end of the game, having that additional hydroacoustic search is quite nice as well. From here, for the first build, I'd recommend taking Adrenaline Rush. What this does is that enhances the ship parameters for each 1% of HP lost. Your main battery reload time and torpedo to reload time are reduced by negative 0.2%. So, like, basically, artillery right now is a 4.5 second reload. So let's say we lose over half health, then we're looking more like 4.4, 4.3, maybe almost 4.2 when you get low, even lower than half health. So that basically means that if you're trading at the end, like you in an enemy destroyer are doing, your guns are going to be reloading even faster. So I've run several engagements purely for having this skill and facing enemy destroyers, not specifically in Lightning, but in other ships. This skill has really saved my bacon. And, I mean, you can also get your torpedoes back online faster, so that's nice as well. The other thing the skill does is that it'll add to your continuous AA damage, but usually it means your AA isn't 100% if you've taken some damage, so maybe just think of it as keeping you on par. After this, I would recommend taking main battery and AA specialist. My pure reasoning for this skill in particular is the main battery reload time. So 4.5 seconds, we take this. Now we're down to 4.3 seconds. What I like about this skill is that it pairs really well with Adrenaline Rush. So now let's say you're getting lower in health, and now you're almost getting down to a 4-second reload time. Not that you want to be low on health, right? You always want to try to retain what health you can as a destroyer for the end game to give you a leg up on the enemy team. But these two work nice together. And then you also see the A defense gets a little buff, so we go from 100 to 110. So, I'll take it. I mean, I was facing as a tier 6 carrier last night, and so we were able to do pretty well because we were tier 8, used tier 6 planes with our AA, and we were able to kind of bait him away from a friendly destroyer who was like really low health, like less than 100, because we wanted to keep him alive. So yeah, it helped. I'm not gonna lie. Or when you take this, it would help even further. That's what I'm trying to say. And then the next skill, you can see we only have 2 points left. I would recommend taking the Consumables enhancement. So what this does is that your hydroacoustic search is improved by 10 seconds, or 10%, sorry, not 10 seconds. So what this does is what did I say? We were originally at, was it 216? Yeah, 180 plus 36, yeah, 216. And then we times that by 10%, which means we basically are adding 21 seconds. So 21 plus that 216 means 237 seconds. So 240 seconds is 4 minutes. So basically with this skill, you get 4 minutes of hydroacoustic search when you pair it with the upgrade for slot 2, the hydroacoustic search consumable. So this works really well, and I really enjoy having 4-minute hydroacoustic search range, or 4-minute duration action time of my hydroacoustic search, because it means I'm spotting more torpedoes for friendlies, which last night when I was playing some more battles in the Lightning, was definitely doing that, picking up Shimakazu, who's being really aggressive and he's trying to get around on our flank. So it helped some of my battleships avoid some of those torpedoes. And then you get the secondary bonus of the action time of your smoke generator going up plus 10%. So basically our action time of the smoke generator is now not 10 seconds, it's 11 seconds. So if that wins you over, then hey, this is the skill for you. But I mainly like to take this skill for the hydroacoustic search. So this is the first build I would recommend. And I mean, the 10 point like this, and then I'd say Adrenaline Rush really should be your main goal when you're looking at destroyers. But I mean, of course, this is just my opinion. This is my advice. Now, when it comes to the second build, right? I brought up torpedoes. You could have a torpedo build. So let's say you don't really care as much about the guns, and you want your torpedoes to reload even faster. So you can see a little +2. So our torpedo are going to reload at 86.4 seconds instead of the 96 seconds. So now it's like a minute 26 instead of a minute 36. And then with this skill, the speed goes from 61? Yeah, 61 to 64 knots. So your torpedo's a little bit faster. And when you pair it with Adrenaline Rush, I mean, your torpedo reload time could be going even down quicker to let's say 80 seconds as an example. So this is another build option. I mean, I know that there are those of you who like torpedoes maybe a little bit more than guns per se. The reason why this isn't necessarily to highlight it the best is because for me, I feel like Lightning leans a little bit more towards her guns. And with these torpedoes only being 8 kilometer range, there's other destroyers at tier 8 that do torpedoes much better than the Lightning. So that's why this is a build option, but I lean more towards the guns and getting a faster gun reload time. The other build option, this is always comes like a close second, but this is the third build option. The second one was either guns or torpedoes. The third is a bit more spicy because you can take RPF, or radio location. What this does is once you master this skill, the player will have a direction to this nearest enemy ship indicated to them. So that's what this little arrow, like this arc. So if I'm going this direction, it means that the closest ship to me is somewhere off this direction. So that can be helpful if you're trying to hunt a destroyer who's been dark for, let's say, over a minute and a half, as an example, and you're like, okay, he could pretty much be, either direction on the map now, no idea where he is. You have this skill, it helps you to know a better idea where they are. The enemy player, however, will be alerted that a bearing is taken on their ship, which is like this little located icon they get sent to right of your screen. You've likely have had that happen to you at one point or another, where you've been RPF'd by an enemy ship. After this, then I would recommend the main battery and AA specialist. So with RPF, the idea with this skill is that you're kind of emphasizing your role more as my focus is to take out enemy destroyers, right? So that means they're not going to get past you. You're going to know where they are. And when you pair that with the guns, that means your guns are going to be reloading even faster, that 4.3 seconds. So these two work together quite well. And then let's say something like incoming fire alert. Yeah, I would say incoming fire alert. So this basically, it's a defense skill, a warning about a salvo fighter at your ship from a distance of more than 4.5 kilometers. So here's where this build, there's a few options here in what you can do. So you could keep Superintendent, like I've already mastered it because the build I'm going for. But you can keep Superintendent, and you've got that additional smoke, you've got that additional hydroacoustic search, helping you maybe hunt destroyers late game. You could drop Superintendent, and instead take the Adrenaline Rush. So as you lose health, your guns are reloading faster, your torpedoes are reloading faster. So you have that option as well. And then I think there was another way I was going to recommend. No, I think that was the two. So do this, and you could take Superintendent, or you could take Adrenaline Rush if you're wanting to emphasize your role more of radiolocation. Now, I said this build comes in like a really hot second for me. So why don't I take this skill? Well, it's mostly, I would say, more of my personal experience in the game, that usually, sometimes I really wish I had RPF. And that's usually for different destroyers, like the Marceau. Like, you have a 7-kilometer concealment range. You know, when you get detected by most any other destroyer at tier 10, you're like, where is he? Which direction is he? Where is he at, right? So that's where it comes in. However, your concealment is so good on the Lightning, where we're rocking not only the 5.5 kilometer detectability range by sea, but then also for myself as a player, because that's what I was saying, I feel I'm more experienced. Usually, most of the time, not always, I'm able to kind of figure out where the enemy destroyer is, roughly. Where it becomes harder for me to figure out where that enemy destroyer is when they've been dark for, let's say, over a minute and a half. Because, you know, he can create some good distance where you're like, okay, is he still around here at sea? Wait, now my RPF, if you have RPF for example, is now it's pointing to the battleship. Okay, he's left this flank, right? That gives you some good information. If you don't have RPF, you're like, okay, where is he at? Where's he at? You're playing cautious. You're not entirely sure where the enemy destroyer is. And all of a sudden you look on your minimap and he's no longer at C cap. He's all the way over, let's say, at the center cap in Bravo. I had given you an example of why I don't kind of traditionally take this skill for the Lightning, why I'm not planning to. I was playing a ranked battle 2 nights ago on the public test server, or a few nights ago, when I was testing out. I was getting the community tokens, but there was a enemy destroyer. As on Islands of Ice, where you have like the 3 caps. You have A, you have B, and then C, something like that. We had spawned over here. I had moved down, took this cap, and I think it was an enemy Benson that was over by A, and his arrow was pointing this way, and he hadn't been detected for, I don't know, probably a minute and a half. Well, most of our team is down here. The enemy team has this cap, and to me it makes sense that he's going to go try for C. Or B cap, A, B, C. So then I left C, and then I moved towards Bravo cap, and I saw he was stepping onto the cap, and then I was able to engage and take him out. So I just try to think, what is the enemy destroyer? If I was an enemy destroyer, what would I be doing right now? Oh, B is wide open. I'm going to head that way. That's what makes sense. So then for me, I was able to catch him off guard. And just put myself in his shoes. What would he be doing? It takes time. It takes investment in the game, player experience to kind of like pick up on those things. It doesn't come natural. I wouldn't have thought of that when I was first started out playing the game. or maybe even last year. So you learn those things along the way. However, if you want the leg up, you can take RPF. It just means you're sacrificing some other good things like a longer hydroacoustic search action time and something like Adrenaline Rush if you take Superintendent over Adrenaline Rush. Regardless, this would be my recommended build. If the long duration of the consumable enhancements does not appeal to you out of this build, you could alternatively go for Priority Target. Priority Target is really usually nothing wrong with this skill. Usually my role is I'm knife fighting a lot with destroyers, so I know that when I get close up, they're going to be targeting me, especially when they're shooting at me. What's nice about Priority Target is when you're engaging another enemy destroyer, you might be able to see them flash you. When I say flash you, let's say it goes one, well, it'll say in that bottom right of that triangle, like Priority Target, like you're either focusing you, it goes from 1, and then it goes, there's no number. 1, no number. That means he's dumping torpedoes on you, and then you can turn out, you can slow down, and avoid those torpedoes. So that's the kind of the nice thing about Priority Target when you're knife fighting other enemy destroyers. For myself, I feel okay with this because usually most of the time I'm going to have hydroacoustic search going. The reload time for the hydroacoustic search, I don't know if is 120 seconds. So you got to wait 2 minutes for your hydroacoustic search to come back online. So there is that for you. So again, just the build I intend to take, and then we'll wrap this video up. This is what I intend to do with my bad cap. Now, if one thing I will add on is if you're planning to continue to grind up, like I'm planning to use cap on my daring and Jetland. Jetland and daring get a heal, so you go from having 2 heals to 3 heals. Lightning doesn't have access to repair party, but when you get up to those two, I intend to have Superintendent for that. So you can keep in mind, if I'm building this commander for a tier 9, tier 10 ship, and I'm at tier 6, maybe I want to try to invest those commander points into what I ultimately want him to be. So just keep that in mind if that's something that you're thinking about in the game. So I think that's going to wrap this video up. So if you liked today's video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. And if you haven't subscribed, thanks. I appreciate it a lot. I just realized as I said that, I didn't highlight why I didn't take the other skills. Flimsy, never change. I'll hop back in real quick. We'll speedrun it. Grease the gears. You already have a really good turret traverse speed. You don't need to take it. Liquidator, you don't really need it. There's other skills you can invest in, especially if you you're doing that torpedo build. You don't really have another point left available to take it. Gunfeeder, your reload time is already 4.5 seconds right now, so why take it? Incoming fire alert, we talked about that skill. Pyrotechnician, you get a plus 1% chance of causing fires on target. I mean, you saw with those 2 combat signals, that puts us at a 10% chance of causing fire on enemy target, and you fire their shells rather quickly. So for me, it doesn't necessarily make sense to take this skill when I can invest in something like this skill, or maybe even this skill if I was going for a torpedo build. So those 3 skills are just better than Pyrotechnician. We talked about Swiftfish. We talked about consumable enhancements, extra heavy AP shells. This skill is not for British destroyers. Maybe there's a couple other destroyers, nations in game maybe that can do this skill a little bit better. I wouldn't recommend spending your 2 points here for that. We talked about priority target. We talked about main battery and AA specialist. We talked about fill the tubes, adrenaline rush, IFHE, your armor penetration capabilities plus 25% goes up, but the chances of causing a fire by HE shells without modifiers applied are reduced by half. Really, you're not crossing any thresholds until you get to like a 6-inch gun, which the Lightning doesn't have 6-inch guns, neither does the Daring. So there's no point in taking this skill, in my opinion. Secondly, if you watched the video yesterday, the link for that battle is in the description, you saw that I actually got arsonist in the lightning, and that's by causing fires. So yeah, I like my fire chance in lightning. Talked about these skills. Main battery and AA expert. So what this skill does is that your main battery firing range is improved by plus 20%. And damage from AA shell explosions goes up by plus 15%. Why I don't take this skill is your main battery firing range. Let's see, let's pull up artillery. It goes from 12.2 to 14.7. If you saw in yesterday's video, I'm going to use this as an example. There was a Leander who was, what is he, like 9-10 kilometers away from me? I don't remember. And you saw me using armor piercing, like I was trying to get the citadels on him. But if you watched the firing arc, my AP was coming more almost like straight down on top of him. It was at an angle, but it was almost straight down, which means I didn't have neither did I have the gun velocity nor the shell trajectory. It wasn't very lateral at that range to be able to actually do significant damage to him. And that wasn't the max range either of lightning. Now, if you take a ship that's, let's say, 14.7 kilometers away, or just 13.5, 14 kilometers, your shell travel time, you're going to have a really hard time landing shells at that range. This skill is more for gunboat destroyers, in my opinion, like French destroyers, like the Marceau, who can bust over 50 knots, booking along, opening up on enemy battleships, cruisers, and that are having really hard time to land shells on the Marceau, quick French destroyer, or even the Russian destroyers. So for me, you can use the 4 points a lot better in other places. I don't take Swift and Silence because this inhibits the permanent effect of your main battery reload time. Is increased by plus 5% in the bad way. It's not reduced, it's increased. So it means now my main battery, if I take that skill, is going to be 4.7 seconds instead of 4.5. And your ship speed is plus 8% when you're not detected. This is something that works a little bit better, like let's say with Shimakaze, where you're mostly using your torpedoes most of the time. Yeah, we talked about RPF. Fearless Brawler, number of shell explosions in the AA salvos, that's a permanent effect, plus 1. Can be activated. Your main battery reload time would be reduced by 10% when your ship is detected by the enemy. The challenge with this is you have to be detected for that to be activated. I like to fire behind islands. I like to fire in smoke screens. And in yesterday's video, you get to see that. So then that means I'm not getting this 4-point skill any worth unless I'm out in the open. Again, this would be something more for like a French or Russian destroyer, as an example. Because your concealment's poor, and like the French, like the Marcel, you don't have a smoke screen, so. And then I don't take Dazzle. Dazzle, what this does is dispersion of shells fired by enemies plus 20% when they're attacking your ship, which means it's going to be a lot harder for enemy ships to land shells on you. I watched, or I read Little White Mouse's article on this skill, and when she compared it against the ships with and without Dazzle, there really wasn't a difference. I couldn't visibly see one on the map where she used like shells firing around the enemy target at the same range. All these factors, I couldn't tell a difference in taking Dazzle. So for me, I can use those 4 points on better things. If you're a little bit more interested about this Dazzle skill, I talked about it at length in my gearing build video, so you can go check that out. I do have players ask like, hey, can you do a video on this ship or that ship? And sometimes I've already done it. If you go to my channel, when you look at my playlist, I have a upgraded commander build playlist, and you'll find other ships there. So yeah. So I almost forgot to talk about that last point, and now we wrap up the video. So if you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more, and if you haven't subscribed, thanks. I really appreciate it as we continue to grow the channel and almost 300 subscribers at the time of recording this. So until next time, take care.